The Deep Space Communications Center hummed with an unusual energy that morning. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood before a wall of monitors, her fingers tracing the unusual patterns dancing across the quantum analysis screens. Something was different about the incoming signal, something that defied conventional explanation. The signal had first appeared 3 days ago, a faint whisper of electromagnetic radiation that seemed to pulse with an almost organic rhythm. At first, the research team had dismissed it as another piece of cosmic background noise. But Elena knew better. Her specialty in communication patterns had taught her to look beyond the obvious, to see the subtle intricacies that most scientists overlooked. "Run the quantum correlation scan again," she instructed her assistant, a young researcher named Michael Chen. His fingers flew across the holographic keyboard, lines of complex algorithms weaving themselves into intricate patterns of light and data. The communication center was a marvel of human engineering, nestled in a remote mountain facility that few knew existed. From the outside, it appeared to be nothing more than a research station. Inside, it was a hub of some of the most advanced communication technologies humanity had ever developed. Massive quantum processors worked in concert, filtering through endless streams of cosmic information, searching for something, anything, that might hint at life beyond Earth. What made this signal different was its complexity. Most cosmic radiation followed predictable patterns, waves of energy that could be mapped, categorized, and understood. This signal, however, seemed to change. It adapted. It responded in ways that suggested something more than natural phenomenon. Michael's voice broke through her concentration. "Dr. Rodriguez, you need to see this." The screen before them transformed. What had appeared as random noise now revealed a structure, subtle but undeniably deliberate. It was like watching a complex painting slowly come into focus, each moment revealing more intricate details. "It's a communication pattern," Elena whispered, her mind racing. Years of research had prepared her for this moment, though she had never truly believed it would come. But not like anything we've ever seen before. The global network of deep space monitoring stations began to light up. From the radio telescopes of Chile to the quantum receivers in Kazakhstan, the signal was being detected simultaneously. It was no longer just a localized anomaly. It was something much larger. In a secure room thousands of miles away, government officials and military strategists began to assemble. The initial reports were cryptic but alarming. This was not a natural phenomenon. This was a message, or the precursor to something far more significant. Elena knew the protocol. Every unexpected signal required careful verification, multiple layers of analysis, and absolute discretion. The team worked with a precision born of years of training, cross-referencing the signal against every known database of cosmic communication patterns. Hours passed. The signal continued, its pattern both chaotic and structured. It was like listening to a language that was simultaneously familiar and completely alien. Mathematical sequences intertwined with what seemed to be complex emotional undertones, if one could even describe them as emotions. "It's almost like it's studying us," Michael muttered, his young face a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Elena nodded. The signal wasn't just broadcasting. It was collecting information, probing, analyzing. Each pulse seemed to carry more information than the last, building a complex framework of understanding. As the day wore on, the implications became clear. This was not a random cosmic event. This was first contact. The quantum processors continued their relentless analysis, each moment revealing more of the mysterious signal's true nature. Somewhere in the vast darkness of space, something was watching. Something was learning. And humanity was about to be introduced to a universe far more complex than they had ever imagined. What they didn't know, what they couldn't yet understand, was that this signal was just the beginning. The first whisper of a conversation that would change everything. A conversation that would determine the fate of not just Earth, but potentially the entire galaxy. The first Zorn ships entered the solar system with calculated precision, their massive electromagnetic pulse weapons primed to disable human technological infrastructure. What they didn't understand was that humanity's preparedness was nothing like the civilizations they had conquered before. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, a command center hummed with activity. General Sarah Martinez watched the incoming alien vessels through a network of advanced tracking systems. Her team represented a global effort, specialists from every continent, united by a contingency plan decades in the making. Incoming energy signature, announced Marcus Wong, the lead quantum systems analyst. His fingers danced across holographic interfaces, tracking the alien approach with meticulous detail. Electromagnetic pulse detected. Estimated impact in 3 minutes. The room didn't panic. Instead, it moved with the choreographed precision of a well-oiled machine. Backup systems began to activate across the globe. What appeared to be simple communication towers, weather stations, and research facilities were actually part of an intricate defensive network. In Tokyo, a team of engineers triggered a series of underground communication relays. Buried deep beneath the city, these systems were shielded against electromagnetic interference. Fiber optic networks, powered by geothermal energy sources, began to reconfigure themselves. Each node was both a communication point and a potential defensive system. The pulse hit with devastating force. To any external observer, it would have seemed like a complete technological shutdown. Lights flickered. Power grids wavered. For a moment, the world appeared vulnerable. But humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades. In Sydney, a group of researchers had spent years developing adaptive network technologies. Their system was designed to not just survive an electromagnetic attack, but to use the energy of the pulse itself as a means of communication and defense. As the alien weapon struck, these networks began to shift, absorbing and redirecting the destructive energy. Pulse absorption at 62%, Marcus reported, a hint of pride in his voice. Secondary network engagement initiated. General Martinez allowed herself a slight smile. The alien invasion force was about to learn a crucial lesson about human resilience. Across the globe, seemingly unrelated systems began to interconnect. Agricultural monitoring stations became communication hubs. Electric vehicle charging networks transformed into distributed computing centers. What the Zorn saw as a vulnerable technological ecosystem was actually a living, breathing defensive organism. In a converted warehouse in Mumbai, Dr. Rajesh Khanna led a team of young engineers who had been working on adaptive communication technologies. Their system was designed to learn and respond in real time. As the electromagnetic pulse washed over their systems, they didn't just defend, they began to analyze. "We're collecting data on their pulse technology," Rajesh told his team. "Every millisecond of the attack is giving us information." The Zorn invasion force expected a typical response. Panic, confusion, a breakdown of communication and infrastructure. Instead, they encountered something entirely unexpected. Within minutes of the pulse, humanity's communication network had not just recovered, it had evolved. Underground fiber optic networks came online. Satellite communication systems reconfigured themselves. What seemed like a global technological blackout was actually a strategic reorganization. Military communication systems merged with civilian networks. Research facilities became communication nodes. "They're adapting," Marcus whispered, watching the alien ship's sensor data. They didn't expect this. General Martinez knew the truth. Humanity's greatest strength had never been its individual technologies. It was the ability to work together, to adapt, to transform a potential weakness into an opportunity. The Zorn ships continued their approach, their sensors struggling to make sense of the rapidly changing technological landscape below. What they saw defied every previous invasion scenario in their database. This was not a planet waiting to be conquered. This was a planet preparing to fight back. As the alien vessels drew closer, humanity's silent preparation reached its final stages. Every system was in place. Every contingency had been considered. The invasion was about to become something the Zorn could never have anticipated. A global defense that was more than just a military strategy. A collective response that transformed an entire species into a single adaptive organism. The real battle was just beginning. The converted warehouse laboratory looked nothing like a traditional research facility. Workstations stretched across the massive floor, each one a testament to human creativity and determination. Captured alien technology lay dissected across multiple surfaces. Complex machinery that would have broken the spirit of any other species now became the raw material of humanity's resistance. Dr. Elena Rodriguez moved between the workstations, her mind racing with possibilities. Around her, a team of the world's most brilliant minds worked with an intensity that defied conventional scientific collaboration. Physicists stood shoulder to shoulder with computer engineers. Mathematicians discussed quantum mechanics with material scientists. The boundaries between disciplines had disappeared, replaced by a singular focus. "Look at the quantum coupling mechanism," called out Dr. Michael Chen, pointing to a piece of alien technology that seemed to defy basic principles of physics. A team of quantum researchers gathered around, their fingers tracing holographic projections of the device's internal structure. In another corner, a group of engineers from Japan worked on reverse engineering the alien spacecraft's propulsion system. What had seemed like incomprehensible technology just days ago was now becoming a puzzle waiting to be solved. They weren't just studying the technology. They were reimagining it. A young researcher named Zara Ahmed approached Elena with a preliminary report. "The energy transfer matrix in their communication devices," she explained. "It's not just a transmission system. It's adaptive. It learns." Elena nodded, understanding the profound implications. The alien technology wasn't just advanced, it was alive in a way human technologies had never been. But where the Zorn saw this as a strength, humans saw an opportunity for innovation. Across the globe, similar laboratories were taking shape. In a secured facility in Brazil, a team was working on adapting alien materials science. Their breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A materials engineer who had previously worked on developing ultra-resilient fabrics for extreme environments. "It's not about copying their technology," Elena told the assembled team. "It's about understanding the principles and then creating something entirely new." The global research effort was unlike anything in human history. Universities suspended normal operations. Private tech companies shared their most closely guarded secrets. Government research facilities opened their doors to independent researchers. The invasion had created something unprecedented, a truly global scientific collaborative. A breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Carlos Rodriguez, no relation to Elena, had been studying the alien communication systems. What he discovered was both terrifying and exciting. The Zorn's technological systems had a fundamental weakness. They relied on a type of quantum entanglement that was actually quite fragile under specific conditions. "We can disrupt their entire communication network," Carlos explained during a global video conference. "But we'll need to develop an entirely new type of quantum interference device." The team in the warehouse laboratory worked around the clock. Shifts rotated, but the work never stopped. Coffee machines ran constantly. Holographic displays flickered with complex equations and molecular simulations. What seemed impossible yesterday was becoming a working prototype today. Zara's team made a critical discovery about the alien energy transfer systems. The technology worked on principles of adaptive quantum communication, but it had a critical blind spot. It assumed that all systems would respond in predictable ways. Humanity's chaotic, unpredictable nature became its greatest weapon. "We're not trying to beat their technology," Elena told her team during a late-night strategy session. "We're going to rewrite the entire concept of technological engagement." Each piece of captured alien technology became a lesson. Their shield systems revealed new approaches to energy distribution. Their communication arrays suggested radical new ways of processing information. Their propulsion mechanisms hinted at fundamental principles of quantum mechanics that human scientists had only theorized about. As the days passed, the laboratory transformed. What had started as a defensive effort became something more, a complete reimagining of technological potential. The alien invasion was becoming a catalyst for the greatest technological leap in human history. The Zorn had come to conquer. Instead, they had become the unwitting teachers of humanity's most significant technological revolution, and humanity was a quick study. The Zorn communication interceptors worked perfectly, until they didn't. What they captured was not the language of defeat, but something far more complex and terrifying. Sergeant David Kim sat in a makeshift communication center, watching the alien translation algorithms struggle to process human communications. The Zorn had developed sophisticated linguistic analysis systems that had broken the spirit of hundreds of civilizations. Those systems now encountered something entirely unprecedented. A group of teenagers live streaming their resistance efforts mixed dark humor with tactical information. A grandmother in Seoul shared survival tips while simultaneously mocking the alien invaders. Social media platforms transformed into intricate communication networks that defied traditional military communication structures. The alien intelligence systems began to malfunction. Humor, it seemed, was a form of psychological warfare that no alien algorithm could comprehend. A captured Zorn communication log revealed their growing confusion. The humans did not respond with terror. They did not collapse under the weight of invasion. Instead, they adapted, joked, planned, and resisted with a psychological flexibility that seemed to defy all known principles of species behavior. In Tokyo, a group of street artists began creating massive urban murals that doubled as communication codes. Each artwork contained hidden information, coordinates, supply routes, defensive strategies. To the casual observer, they were simply remarkable pieces of art. To the resistance, they were complex communication systems. The global response was nothing like the Zorn had ever encountered. Where other species had clear hierarchical structures, humans operated like a complex neural network. No single point of leadership could be targeted. No central system could be disabled. Dr. Elena Rodriguez worked with a team of psychologists and communication experts to understand and exploit this unique human characteristic. They discovered something profound about human communication. It was less about the transmission of information and more about the creation of shared meaning. They're not just sharing information, she explained to a group of military strategists. They're creating a collective narrative of resistance. Social media platforms became battlegrounds of a different kind. Memes became intelligence reports. Personal stories became strategic communication. The line between civilian and military communication disappeared completely. The Zorn intercepted a communication between two high school students in Brazil. They expected to find fear. Instead, they found a complex discussion about resistance strategies, mixed with jokes about the alien invasion and plans for an underground music festival. Their translation algorithms began to break down. Humor, it turned out, was a form of communication that defied logical analysis. Sarcasm became a weapon. Collective storytelling became a defense mechanism. The more the Zorn tried to understand, the more confused they became. In Mumbai, a group of call center workers repurposed their communication skills into a sophisticated intelligence network. They created communication codes that sounded like ordinary customer service conversations. To anyone listening, it was just another tech support call. To the resistance, it was a detailed strategic transmission. The psychological warfare was not just about resistance, it was about maintaining hope. Communities around the world began to share stories of survival, of small victories, of human resilience. Each story became a form of psychological ammunition. A group of computer programmers developed communication algorithms that intentionally introduced randomness and emotional complexity. These systems were designed to be impossible for alien intelligence to fully comprehend. They created communication patterns that were simultaneously meaningful and nonsensical. The Zorn High Command began to experience something they had never encountered before: psychological fatigue. Their rigid communication systems could not process the fluid, adaptive nature of human interaction. What they had anticipated as a simple planetary conquest was becoming a nightmare of psychological complexity. Humans did not just resist. They transformed the very concept of resistance into an art form. And the Zorn were completely unprepared. The transformation began almost imperceptibly. What appeared to be chaos was actually the most sophisticated global coordination in human history. In the control center beneath the Andes Mountains, General Sofia Rodriguez watched as the world's infrastructure began to shift. Agricultural systems became supply lines. Transportation networks transformed into communication grids. Every civilian technology became a potential defensive resource. A farmer in Kenya adjusted his solar-powered irrigation system, unknowingly creating a communication relay point for resistance networks. In the suburbs of Seoul, a group of university students reprogrammed municipal traffic control systems to create encrypted communication channels. A cruise ship in the Pacific Ocean became a mobile research station, its advanced communication systems now part of a global defensive network. The Zorn had studied Earth for months before the invasion. They believed they understood human systems. They were catastrophically wrong. What they saw as separate, uncoordinated systems were actually a living, breathing global organism. Each infrastructure sector began to adapt, merge, and support the others in ways no single system could have predicted. Transportation networks became more than routes for movement. They were now adaptive communication systems. A cargo truck in Brazil could redirect its route to deliver critical supplies, communicate resistance information, and provide a mobile communication relay, all simultaneously. Dr. Michael Chen's team had developed an adaptive network protocol that allowed seemingly unrelated systems to communicate. A weather monitoring station in Alaska could now share critical information with a medical research facility in Cape Town. Power grids became more than electricity distribution systems. They were now complex communication networks. The global response defied every military strategy the Zorn had ever encountered. In Australia, agricultural monitoring systems began tracking alien ship movements. The same networks that monitored crop health and water resources now provided critical intelligence about invasion patterns. Farmers became frontline intelligence gatherers without even realizing it. Universities suspended normal operations. Research facilities around the world merged their resources. What had once been competitive academic environments now became a single global research organism. A breakthrough in a laboratory in Canada could be implemented by a team in Argentina within hours. Satellite networks that were once used for communication and navigation now became sophisticated tracking and defensive systems. Commercial communication satellites merged their capabilities with military observation networks. The line between civilian and military technology disappeared completely. Healthcare systems transformed into more than medical networks. Hospitals became coordination centers. Medical supply chains became intelligence distribution networks. A shipment of medical supplies could now carry encrypted communication data, supply chain information, and resistance coordinates. The Zorn invasion force began to realize they were fighting something fundamentally different from any civilization they had encountered before. This was not a hierarchical system with clear command structures. This was a living, adaptive network that could reconfigure itself instantaneously. Emergency response systems in major cities became sophisticated defensive coordination centers. A fire department in New York could now coordinate with a research facility in Tokyo, sharing real-time information about alien technological weaknesses. What seemed like random activity was actually a precisely choreographed global response. Each system supported the others. Each sector adapted to support the collective defense. The most remarkable aspect was the speed of adaptation. Where traditional military systems would take weeks or months to coordinate, human networks could reconfigure in minutes. A technological weakness discovered in one part of the world could be analyzed, understood, and countered globally almost instantaneously. Communication satellites, agricultural monitoring systems, medical supply chains, transportation networks, all merged into a single adaptive defensive mechanism. The Zorn had expected to find a vulnerable planet. Instead, they discovered a global organism more complex than any they had ever encountered. Humanity was no longer a collection of separate nations or systems. It had become something entirely new, a global symphony of resistance. And the music was just beginning to play. The breakthrough came from an unexpected collaboration. Dr. Carlos Martinez sat in a makeshift laboratory, surrounded by fragments of alien technology that most scientists would have considered incomprehensible. Beside him, a group of researchers from disciplines that would never have worked together before the invasion shared a pot of rapidly cooling coffee. Yuki Tanaka, a materials scientist from Tokyo, had been studying the molecular structure of the alien communication devices for days. Her background in nanotechnology gave her a unique perspective. Next to her, Dr. Kwame Osai, a quantum physicist from Ghana, examined the energy transfer mechanisms with a critical eye. "Look at the quantum entanglement pattern," Yuki said, projecting a holographic representation of the alien device's internal structure. "It's not just a communication system, it's a living network." The alien technology was unlike anything humans had encountered. Most scientific teams would have been overwhelmed. This team saw it as the most fascinating puzzle in human history. A young engineer named Sofia Rodriguez noticed something peculiar about the energy transfer matrix. The system had a fundamental weakness. It assumed all communication would follow a predictable pattern. Humans, by their very nature, were anything but predictable. "It's designed for linear thinking," Sophia explained, her fingers tracing the complex quantum pathways. But human communication is more like a neural network, chaotic, adaptive. The team worked in shifts that blended into each other. Days became nights. Meals were forgotten. The alien technology lay dissected across multiple workstations, each component a potential key to understanding. Dr. O.C. made the first critical discovery. The alien communication system relied on a type of quantum entanglement that was actually quite fragile under specific conditions. It was a complex network that assumed all nodes would respond in a predictable manner. "They'd never encountered a species like us," he muttered, working through complex mathematical models. The breakthrough came during a moment of collective inspiration. Sophia's observation about human unpredictability merged with Yuki's understanding of materials science and Dr. Osai's quantum mechanics expertise. They could create a device that would not just disrupt the alien communication network, it would fundamentally destabilize their entire technological infrastructure. The first prototype was crude, a mess of quantum processors, alien materials, and human innovation. When they first tested it, the entire laboratory went silent. The device seemed to breathe, to live, in a way no human technology had ever done before. "We're not just blocking their communication," Carlos explained during a global video conference. "We're creating a system that learns, adapts, and disrupts their entire technological ecosystem." The global research network kicked into high gear. Within hours, the initial breakthrough was being studied, replicated, and improved by research teams around the world. A laboratory in Brazil would identify a potential improvement. Researchers in Australia would implement the modification. A team in Canada would refine the approach. What had started as a small breakthrough became a global technological revolution. The alien communication systems began to experience inexplicable failures. At first, they were minor, small disruptions that seemed random. But they grew more frequent, more significant. Each failure revealed more about the alien technology. Each disruption became a learning opportunity. The device they were creating was more than a weapon. It was a complete reimagining of communication technology. It could adapt. It could learn. It could transform. Humans had always been good at turning limitations into opportunities. This was that principle taken to its ultimate expression. As the final modifications were made, the team realized they had created something unprecedented, not just a tool to fight the invasion, but a new way of understanding communication, technology, and the very nature of connection. The Zorn had come to conquer. Instead, they had become the catalyst for humanity's greatest technological leap. The Zorn High Command watched in growing horror as their invasion unraveled. Fleet Admiral Krelvac studied the holographic displays, his neural interfaces struggling to process the impossible scenario unfolding before him. What had begun as a routine planetary conquest was becoming a nightmare beyond comprehension. Their communication networks collapsed first. Quantum entanglement systems that had never failed in hundreds of planetary invasions began to disintegrate. Each attempted transmission revealed more vulnerabilities. What the humans had created was not just a defensive system. It was a living, adaptive technological organism that learned and transformed with each interaction. Across the fleet, ship systems began to fail in cascading sequences. Navigation became unreliable. Weapon systems developed inexplicable targeting errors. Communication channels filled with noise that defied all known algorithmic filtering. The invasion ships that had entered the solar system with supreme confidence now drifted like wounded predators. Each attempt to regroup only revealed more systemic failures. Military strategists on board the command vessel watched in disbelief. The human resistance was unlike anything in their historical archives. No species had ever responded with such comprehensive, adaptive defense. On Earth, the global resistance network operated with a fluidity that seemed almost supernatural. A communication disruption in one sector would be immediately compensated by another. Transportation networks became communication channels. Agricultural systems provided intelligence. Medical facilities became coordination centers. General Sofia Rodriguez coordinated from a mobile command center that was never in one location for more than hours. The resistance had learned that centralization was vulnerability. Instead, they created a distributed network that could reconfigure itself instantaneously. The technological breakthrough developed in the previous weeks now showed its true potential. What the research teams had created was more than a weapon. It was a complete reimagining of technological engagement. Zorn ships found their most advanced systems turned against them. Quantum communication networks became channels of disinformation. Targeting systems began to malfunction in ways that seemed to defy physical laws. Each alien technological advantage became a potential point of failure. A group of young programmers in Rio de Janeiro discovered they could introduce complex mathematical patterns into the alien communication systems. These patterns looked like random noise to alien algorithms, but contained intricate layers of strategic information. The Zorn found themselves drowning in information that they could neither filter nor understand. Fleet Admiral Krelvac realized the fundamental error in their invasion strategy. They had studied Earth. They had analyzed human technological systems, but they had completely misunderstood the most critical component, human adaptability. Humans did not have a single point of failure. They were not a hierarchical system that could be decapitated. They were a complex, adaptive network that grew stronger with each challenge. The invasion fleet began to break apart, not through direct military confrontation, but through 1,000 small technological disruptions. Communication systems failed. Navigation became impossible. Weapon systems turned into useless assemblies of metal and quantum processors. What made humans truly terrifying was not their individual technological capabilities. It was their ability to transform, to learn, to adapt faster than any known species in the galaxy. Each alien ship became an isolated unit, cut off from the collective. Their supposedly advanced communication systems became nothing more than expensive metallic tombs floating in the darkness of space. The Resistance had done more than defend. They had completely rewritten the rules of technological engagement. As the Zorn fleet began its desperate retreat, humanity watched. Not with anger, not with vengeance, but with a sense of collective achievement that transcended traditional military victory. They had not just defended their planet. They had shown the galaxy something fundamental about their species. Humanity was not a civilization to be conquered. Humanity was a force of adaptation, a living, breathing, technological ecosystem that could transform any challenge into an opportunity. The invasion was over. The real conversation was just beginning. The silence after the invasion was unlike anything in human history. Dr. Carlos Mendez stood on the observation deck of the International Research Station, watching the scattered remnants of the Zorn fleet drift through the solar system. The global communication networks that had been their primary defense now hummed with a different kind of energy, curiosity, reflection, and an unprecedented sense of collective achievement. In the weeks following the invasion, humanity underwent a transformation more profound than the conflict itself. National boundaries seemed to dissolve. The global collaboration that had repelled the invasion continued to reshape human civilization. Research facilities that had been competitive became collaborative networks. Universities merged their resources. Technological innovations that had been developed during the resistance began to reshape every aspect of human society. The adaptation required to survive the invasion had become a new way of existing. Fleet Admiral Krulvax sat in a secure containment facility, the sole high-ranking Zorn officer captured during the conflict. International teams of linguists, psychologists, and researchers studied him, not as a prisoner, but as a source of unprecedented knowledge. "We have studied thousands of civilizations," Krulvax told Dr. Sofia Rodriguez during one of their interviews. "None responded as your species did." The captured Zorn technology became a catalyst for human innovation. Research teams around the world worked to understand systems that defied previous technological understanding. What had been an invasion became the greatest technological gift in human history. A young researcher in Mumbai discovered that the Zorn communication systems contained complex neural networks that were fundamentally different from human technology. Instead of seeing this as a threat, she saw it as an opportunity for understanding. The global defense network that had been created during the invasion didn't dismantle. It transformed. Agricultural systems retained their enhanced communication capabilities. Transportation networks continued to operate with the adaptive intelligence developed during the conflict. What had been a defensive system became a new approach to global cooperation. Universities around the world began offering new interdisciplinary programs. The invasion had demonstrated the power of breaking down traditional academic boundaries. A student could now study quantum physics, communication theory, and agricultural engineering in a single integrated program. The technological breakthroughs were unprecedented. New energy systems developed from the study of Zorn propulsion technologies. Communication networks became more adaptive and resilient. Medical research advanced by decades in a matter of months. But the most significant change was cultural. Humanity had discovered something about itself. The invasion had revealed a collective potential that no one had previously understood. The ability to adapt, to transform, to turn a potential extinction-level event into an opportunity for growth. International space exploration programs accelerated. The successful defense against the Zorn became an invitation to explore, to understand, to prepare. Humanity was no longer just a planetary civilization. It had become a species with galactic potential. Dr. Mendez reflected on the fundamental lesson of the invasion. It wasn't about technological superiority. It was about adaptability, about the ability to learn, to transform, to see every challenge as an opportunity. The captured Zorn technology revealed something profound. Their systems were designed for conquest. Human systems were designed for adaptation. In secure research facilities, teams worked to understand the broader implications. The Zorn were not an isolated incident. They were a first contact, a test of humanity's potential. Global communication networks began to change. The adaptive technologies developed during the invasion became a new way of sharing information. Knowledge became more fluid, collaborative, less bound by traditional barriers. Fleet Admiral Krulvax, in his final interview, made a statement that would be remembered for generations. "We came to conquer. We taught you how to become something more." Humanity had not just survived an invasion. It had been transformed by it. The galaxy would never be the same, and neither would humanity.